Okay, so one of your most asked questions was how to make it easier to research so that you don't get overwhelmed or discouraged.
Yeah, thanks, Katie. That's an excellent question. And we certainly don't want you to feel overwhelmed or discouraged by the research process. And so, one of the things I like to ask students when they first come to me is, what are your due dates, right? And so I tell them, go to your syllabus, right? And so, generally, or sometimes professors will talk about scaffold due dates. And what that basically means is that due dates come in sort of intervals and they build upon one another. So if you have a research project or a research paper, you might find that the outline or the topic is due right at the beginning. And then they'll have another due date that's due for, let's say, your lit review. And then finally, your research paper that's due at the end. So take those due dates that are right in your syllabus and write them in a paper calendar, let's say, or in a Google Calendar, someplace that you're going to see every day, so that hopefully you're not feeling overwhelmed at the end and procrastinating, right? And then the next thing that I recommend is know the formal requirements. How many pages is your paper? Is it 2 pages versus 10 pages? And then the next thing to know is, what is the citations requirement? Are they asking you to do APA or MLA? If you don't know what that is, or if you've never done that, that's okay. Don't stress out. Reach out to us, talk to your professor about it, but know those requirements so you're not feeling overwhelmed at the end, right? So that you know what you're required to do. And then lastly, know what your sources are at the beginning, right? Do you need 3 sources versus 5 sources? And maybe they're asking you for a reference from a newspaper or from a database or from a website. So I feel like if you understand those requirements at the beginning and organize yourself, you're less likely to feel really stressed out when you're in like the research process in the middle of it or at the end.
Thanks, Lanette. That's really helpful.
Alex, do you have any tips to make research a little bit easier?
Um, yes, I think so. So, one of the great things in college is that you have a lot more choice about what you end up researching. And so that is both great, but also can be really overwhelming. So what I would do, or what I would recommend a student does, is first take some time to really think about and figure out your topic. And what I would do is just really stream of consciousness. What is interesting to you about this topic? What questions do you have? What don't you understand about this topic? And spend some time so that you go into your research project, process already having some guiding questions. Then it will really be time for you to jump into the literature. Then when you're actually doing the research, you're probably going to have a lot of things that you can look at. It might be something like you're going to start off on one search. Maybe after you're out of one search, you're going to look in some of the databases. The main thing is that you are going to learn many strategies that you didn't use in high school, and your librarian is really here to help you do that.
Thanks, Alex. I mean, and I think you make a great point. The liaison librarians and the team of librarians are always there to help, you know, guide you and never feel that you can't reach out to help.
Mm-hmm. Katie, do you have any just general advice for students in how to avoid major freakouts?
Yeah, I do. So the first thing that I would say, seconding your point, is that if you feel overwhelmed, take a breath, walk away from your workspace. I would say do something else, meditative, or that totally gets you out of your mental space for 10 to 12 minutes, and then come back to working. Another big thing that will help mitigate a lot of stress is to establish and enforce a regular schedule. So like a regular sleep time and, caffeine cutoff, I find is a really big help, and it will help recharge you as well as sort of balancing out. Another thing that I would suggest is to compile your notes from the class, as well as from the reading and any research that you've done in a unified format and a place at the end of the semester, especially if you're going to take future classes with either anything that's really similar, or if you're taking other courses that will build on this one, which will help you a lot in the long run.
Awesome. One way that you can get help and feel less overwhelmed is really by talking to your liaison librarian. And we can help at any stage of the process. We can help when you're coming up with your topic, when you're trying to find those sources, and when you need someone to help you talk through some of those sticking points. And probably one of the best things that you can remember is that it is very normal to feel overwhelmed when you're doing research, and that everyone feels overwhelmed at some point in the research process, and that you're not alone. You are not alone.